After years of watching the used car market, I've learned something most buyers never figure out until it costs them money. The best Japanese SUVs are not always the ones getting all the attention. In fact, some of the smartest buys on the market are the ones people keep walking right past. Not because they are bad, not because they are unreliable, but because they were marketed badly, overshadowed by bigger names, or stuck with an image problem they never deserved. And that creates opportunity, because while everyone else is chasing the same obvious Toyota and Honda crossovers, there are a few Japanese SUVs sitting in the used market right now that offer strong reliability, low maintenance costs, and far more value than most buyers realize. Today, I want to break down 3 Japanese SUVs that are still criminally underrated. These are the ones mechanics usually do not hate seeing come into the shop, the ones owners tend to keep for years, and the ones that can save you thousands if you know exactly what to look for. And the first one is a Toyota that the market never really understood. Number 3, Toyota Venza. The Toyota Venza is one of the strangest examples of a good vehicle getting ignored for the wrong reasons. When it first came out, buyers did not really know what to do with it. It was not quite a traditional SUV. It was not quite a wagon. It was not quite a family hauler in the way a Highlander was. And because of that, it never became the obvious choice in Toyota's lineup. That failure in marketing is exactly why it is interesting now, because underneath the awkward identity, the Venza is built on proven Toyota bones. And that matters far more than how exciting the brochure looked when it was new. This is the kind of crossover that tends to make sense once you stop shopping with your eyes and start shopping with your brain. The strongest version is the V6. That is the one that makes this vehicle worth talking about. It has the power the heavier body actually needs, it feels smoother, and it turns the Venza from just another used crossover into something that feels far more solid and refined than its market price suggests. That is the hidden appeal here. You are often paying used RAV4 money for something that feels more substantial, more comfortable, and in many cases, more upscale. And because it never became the cool choice, prices stayed softer than they probably should have. Now, that does not mean every Venza is automatically a great buy. The early years are the ones you need to approach more carefully. That is usually true with vehicles that take a few years to settle into themselves. The later years are where the value gets much more attractive, because the product was more sorted and the market still never fully caught on. That combination is gold in the used market. There is also another big advantage here that buyers often miss. The Venza uses a timing chain rather than a timing belt, and that matters more than people think, because a timing chain vehicle quietly removes one expensive maintenance headache from the long-term ownership picture. That is one less major service hanging over your head. And that is exactly the kind of thing smart buyers look for. Not flash, not hype, reduced future headaches. If you are willing to buy a vehicle that the market never fully appreciated, the Venza can be one of the smartest Toyota purchases out there. But the next one is even more interesting because the badge scares away budget buyers for no good reason. Number 2, Lexus RX 350. A lot of people hear Lexus and stop listening. They assume expensive repairs, expensive parts, expensive dealer service, and a used luxury SUV that is going to punish them the second anything breaks. That assumption is exactly why the RX 350 remains such a smart buy. Because the RX is one of those vehicles that looks expensive to own from the outside, but mechanically, it is far less intimidating than people think. And that is because under the luxury badge is a lot of Toyota logic. That is the secret. The RX 350 is not a German luxury SUV with a long list of exotic repair nightmares waiting around the corner. It is a Lexus built with Toyota's long-standing approach to durability, which means you get the comfort, the quiet ride, the better interior, and the upscale feel without stepping into the kind of ownership chaos people usually associate with luxury vehicles. That is why this SUV is such a strong value play. A lot of buyers are shopping for vehicles like a Honda CR-V, Toyota RAV4, or Nissan Rogue without ever considering that a used RX 350 may actually deliver a better ownership experience in the long run, not just a nicer one, a better one. Because this is where people make the mistake of shopping by category instead of shopping by engineering. They see luxury SUV and assume it must cost more to live with than a normal Japanese crossover. But when the mechanical base case is this proven, that assumption falls apart pretty quickly. The smart years here are the later years within the generation, especially the ones that benefited from refinement and did not carry the same early model headaches. And one of the most important details is the shift away from timing belt maintenance in the older RX line to the timing chain setup in the RX 350. That difference matters a lot, because it changes the long-term math. When you remove recurring expensive maintenance from the picture, the whole ownership story becomes more attractive. That is what makes the RX 350 such a dangerous vehicle for the rest of the used market. Because once buyers realize they can get real comfort, a strong reliability reputation, and Toyota-based mechanical confidence for the price of far less impressive vehicles, the value becomes hard to ignore. The RX 350 is not the flashy answer, it is the smart answer. And smart answers are exactly where the best used car deals usually live. If you are getting value from this list so far, subscribe right now, because this channel is built for buyers who want the truth before they spend the money, not after the repair bill shows up. Now let's talk about the one that may be the most underrated of the three. Number 1, Mazda CX-5. This is the SUV that should be mentioned far more often than it is, because whenever people talk about reliable Japanese compact SUVs, the conversation almost always defaults to the same names: Toyota RAV4, Honda CR-V, maybe Subaru Forester. Mazda usually shows up later, if at all. And that is strange, because the CX-5 has quietly built one of the strongest reputations in its class. This is the vehicle for people who want reliability but are tired of paying the Toyota tax. That is a real thing in the used market. Some vehicles become so well known for reliability that people pay a premium just to feel safe. And while there is nothing wrong with buying a RAV4, there are times when the smarter value is the vehicle sitting right next to it for less money. That is where the CX-5 shines. Mazda did something very smart with this SUV. They did not overcomplicate it. They did not try to reinvent the segment with fragile gimmicks. They built a crossover with straightforward engineering, strong driving dynamics, and a level of quality that punches above what many buyers expect. And that matters because reliability is not just about avoiding disasters. It is also about the vehicle feeling solid year after year. The CX-5 tends to do that. It drives tighter than many rivals. It feels more premium than its price suggests. And it avoids some of the engineering choices that have hurt the long-term reputation of competing models. That alone makes it worth serious attention. The sweet spot is not the very earliest version. That is another pattern smart used buyers need to understand. A vehicle may be good overall, but the best value often sits a couple of years into the run, after the earliest bugs have been worked through and before the market catches on. That is where the CX-5 gets especially appealing. The stronger engine setup improves the ownership experience, the vehicle feels more mature, and you still get pricing that often undercuts what people are paying for more obvious alternatives. There is one honest caution here though. If you live in an area where roads get salted heavily in winter, you need to inspect one of these carefully underneath. That is the part lazy buyers skip. And lazy buyers are exactly the ones who end up saying a vehicle suddenly had problems. It did not suddenly have problems, they just never looked. That rust check matters. If the underbody is clean and the maintenance history makes sense, the CX-5 becomes one of the strongest compact SUV buys in the market. And unlike some rivals, it gives you a driving experience that does not feel like a penalty for choosing the sensible option. That is part of why owners end up loving them. It is reliable, but it does not feel boring. It is practical, but it does not feel cheap. It is efficient, but it still feels like someone cared while designing it. That combination is hard to find, and that is exactly why the CX-5 deserves the #1 spot on this list. So here is the bigger lesson. The used Japanese SUV market is full of buyers making decisions based on habit instead of value. They buy what they have heard of. They buy what everybody else recommends. They buy the obvious choice and assume the obvious choice must be the best one. But that is not always true. Sometimes the better deal is the Toyota nobody understood. Sometimes it is the Lexus people assume they cannot afford. Sometimes it is the Mazda that gets ignored because the brand is smaller and the marketing is quieter. That is where opportunity lives. The Toyota Venza gives you proven Toyota engineering in a package the market never priced aggressively enough. The Lexus RX 350 gives you comfort and long-term confidence without the ownership pain people wrongly expect from luxury vehicles. And the Mazda CX-5 gives you one of the smartest combinations of reliability, value, and everyday drivability in the entire segment. That is why these three matter. They are not just good cars. They are strategic buys, and in the used market, strategy is what saves you money. Not badges, not hype, not popularity. Strategy. So if you are shopping for a Japanese SUV right now, stop chasing only the names everybody already knows. Start looking at the vehicles that offer more than the market gives them credit for. Because the best deal is often not the one with the loudest reputation. It is the one hiding in plain sight. And if you want the next video, I'll break down the Japanese SUVs that look like bargains up front, but can turn into some of the worst ownership decisions you can make once the real repair costs start hitting.